Hello, everyone, and welcome to So Fresh, So Prince,
Fresh,
only podcast that talks about the greatest sitcom of the 90s, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. My name is Andrew Apple, and with me is Lorenzo Gordon.
Hello, everybody. Hello. We're here to talk about one of the greatest shows ever. Something you can learn some moral values from.
And yet still be entertained, and not in that Sesame Street kind of way.
Of course, because...
We're not knocking Sesame Street, though.
No, we're not knocking Sesame Street, but when Will Smith teaches you how to sneak out of a house and sneak back into a house, I think that's a good lesson for a child to learn.
It's an important lesson. Now, the one thing you do not want to learn from Will Smith is how to dance.
I'm going to agree with you on that one there. Yeah, I think that, Will, Carlton, I just think, the whole Banks family, anybody who lived in that house, you should not learn how to dance from them.
I disagree. You could learn how to dance from the first Aunt Vivian. She could dance.
But do you really want to be caught doing the shoulder dance that she does?
Everything is cyclical. It makes a comeback at some point, so I'm going to stand by it.
Okay, maybe it's good to know. Maybe not the thing to do at the club or anywhere else. True, there is one or maybe 3 or 4 or 5 good examples in there, but the rest of them just don't do it. Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're on the same page. I'm glad that our listeners can be on the same page with us about what you should not take away from this show. Because The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, one of the reasons that this show is so appealing, is in all of its iconic nature, is a show that should not have worked as well as it did. It should not have been nearly as entertaining as it was. And it shouldn't have lasted nearly as long as it did. But for some reason, when you put this weird melting pot of things together that came into the show, it all just worked. And it continued. And it got that iconic nature that a series gets.
And it's kind of like the lottery, of all things. You just hope that, hey, maybe people will want to see what it's like to live in Bel-Air. And they did for...
Well, they wanted to see what Will Smith was like living in Bel-Air.
Well, of course, because that's what everybody thinks about. You've always had that bad cousin who comes to the house. What happened if you had to live with him forever? Then I think that's why a lot of people tuned in. What could happen? And
there was a lot of what did happen.
Yeah.
Especially in those first chunk of episodes, because, you and I, we've both worked in the sitcom world before, and when you're first building a sitcom, what you're ultimately doing is kind of throwing a lot of spaghetti up against the wall.
Yeah.
And you're kind of seeing what fits. You haven't really figured out how to write for these individual actors, because when you're writing at that speed, you kind of know what the actors' strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and what you can use to make them look good. They don't know what's going on when you first get these actors together, and you don't see where you can put people together. So that's where you end up with storylines like, oh no, Will, he just pawned Ashley's violin and got her a set of drums.
And that within itself is funny because, what pawn shop did they go to where one violin was worth a whole entire drum set plus the drumsticks and the cymbals and the stands? Like, that couldn't have been a top-notch drum set.
And how did they get it home? Did they ever touch on that?
No, I don't think they did. And I think that's one of the major amazing things about the show is they just let things happen. You didn't ask what happened. You didn't ask who set up the drum set. Did anybody know how to set up a drum set? I don't think anybody did.
But where it got crazy is that the thing that they figured out that worked with the cast was that you just had to never let that disappear.
Yeah.
Because it got crazier and crazier as the seasons went on. There were just all these little nods and in-jokes to the fact that half the stuff they were doing didn't make any sense to begin with.
Yeah. It's funny because, there was, at least, they didn't have the stair complex. You'd go up the stairs and be like, oh, okay, the family's up the stairs. No, they would take you upstairs and see all of the craziness that would happen in the Banks family residence.
Yeah, and then when season 2 came around and they got an entirely new house, nobody even said anything. Just like, they renovated the house between the seasons.
Wait, they got a new house?
Yeah.
Nobody ever told me that.
If you watch between season 1 and season 2, it's a completely different house for season 2 and beyond. The show was so successful after its first season that they gave them a bigger set that looks nothing like the first set. Everything is turned around. Everything's in a different place. Uncle Phil has different facial hair. It's all different.
I didn't know that they had a different facial hair specialist for Uncle Phil.
Well, you know, when a show is successful, you get things like one person dedicated to the dad's facial hair.
So they had one guy walking around on set with a toothbrush to, take care of Uncle Phil's goatee. Because he had no hair on top.
You joke, and yet somebody in Hollywood does get paid to do that.
That pays somebody's mortgage for, till now.
Yeah, I mean, one sitcom can pay someone's mortgage entirely, both in front of and behind the camera. And there was a lot of that on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, because especially after that first season, people really did flock to it. It was something that people wanted to see more of, and people moved on from. And Will Smith, he was very quickly becoming a bigger and bigger star as time went on with the show.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a funny thing, because you look at his success from Parents Just Don't Understand, from his relationship between him and Uncle Phil. It was just a progression of it if you really look at it. And I think that's what people tuned in for the first few times, just to see.
And more than that, it's held up in a way that a lot of sitcoms of that era really haven't.
Yeah.
The obvious exception, however, is Full House, but that was just a behemoth that was never going to go away.
Well, I mean, that's just pure suburbia. That oozes suburbia. You can't get more suburban than Full House. Danny Tanner. That just sounds like a suburban dad name. I feel like I know somebody named Danny Tanner.
You probably do know someone named Danny Tanner.
It's just his middle name. He says Danny Tanner Johnson, just to make him a little bit more likable.
Full House is getting its revival right now, so it's only a matter of time before The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, they get their revival.
Yeah. Carl is going to be the uncle that made it. I think that's what should happen.
Uncle Carl.
Yeah.
All right, that'll be Hillary and Ashley's kids.
I think that would be the funniest pair ever. One would come out in Gucci shoes, and one would come out singing.
And they wouldn't understand each other for a moment.
The only two sisters that could never get along.
So let's talk about this show. I mean, you had Quincy Jones in the television world for the first time, and before that, he had mostly been known for music.
Well, Quincy Jones is music, so
absolutely.
You can't really take him out. I think it was just Quincy is music.
Yes, absolutely. Which is why he is responsible for probably the most iconic theme song in the history of theme songs.
And that's the funniest thing, because if you listen to Quincy's music before that, it sounded nothing like that. Quincy was jazz.
Well, I mean, you're a musician yourself. Doesn't every musician have that thing in their wheelhouse where it's like, all right, this song needs to appeal to people, so we're going to do it like this?
Oh, yeah. I call it the Stevie effect. You listen to Stevie Wonder, and then he hit the 90s, and then you wondered where Stevie Wonder went. It's Stevie Wonder singing, but what happened to Stevie? But I think to Quincy's appeal, that just shows that he's able to do everything. Quincy can just make music. He's just a musician.
That's true. And he did Soul Bossa Nova, which I love Soul Bossa Nova.
Yeah.
That's the Austin Powers theme song. For people who haven't seen Austin Powers, that was a James Bond ripoff. And if you've never seen James Bond, then I apologize. You were raised poorly.
No, I just don't think you don't exist. Everybody's seen a Bond.
Yeah.
Even from Sean Connery.
I hope. If you're out there and you haven't seen a James Bond movie, hit us up on Twitter @SoFreshSoPrince. Let us know why you haven't seen it yet and what stopped you from ever doing it.
And because every generation has a James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
You can't escape Bond.
No. I mean, right now it's Daniel Craig, but we grew up on Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
And I'm sure somebody grew up on Timothy Dalton for the one movie that he did.
I still think everybody gets trumped by Sean Connery. There's just so many Sean Connery. It's just so dry.
Well, I mean, do you remember who replaced Sean Connery?
I don't think anybody really cares. I just think people were mad that Sean Connery wasn't Bond anymore.
Yeah. George Lazenby, he did one movie.
Yeah.
And he was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. So, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Of course.
This show came to be because musician, producer, manager Benny Medina, he had a fairly interesting life. He was actually abandoned by his parents. and he ended up living with the music composer Jack Elliott and his son Alan. They lived in his Beverly Hills apartment together, and they got into some antics.
Of course.
And so you had kind of a fish out of water scenario. So Benny Medina did what most people do in life, where they say, my life is interesting. I think it should be turned into a TV show.
Because everybody's life is an episode.
Exactly. But he actually had the juice and the pull to go to people like Quincy Jones.
Oh, yeah.
And they were able to get in the room with Warren Littlefield and Brandon Tartikoff, who were in charge of NBC at the time, and they got it on the air.
Yeah.
So they hired Andy Borowitz and Susan Stevenson, two comedy writers, to create the show. Andy Borowitz, he had previously written for Archie Bunker's Place, Square Pegs, and The Facts of Life, and he would later go on to become a very famous political satirist, writing the Borowitz Report for The New Yorker. Susan Stevenson, she had previously written for several sitcoms, including Family Ties. This would be one of two shows that they would create together. The second was called Out All Night, which starred Patti LaBelle, Morris Chestnut, Vivica A. Fox, Dwayne Martin, and it was set in the same world as The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Hilary Banks, Karen Parsons, actually appeared in character on that show.
But isn't it funny that Hillary is the only one that made it out of that show alive?
She made it into The Ladies' Man.
Yeah. Who doesn't love the ladies, man? But I would think, like, with those names, especially now, seeing their career now, it's like, what was it about Hillary Banks that made it from episode?
It seems like, and mind you, I have not seen Out All Night, but she's the easiest fit to make it into that world because it was about a nightclub and she was a reporter. She had a TV show, so it was very easy to make that segue to get in that world.
Yeah, I guess so. I just think it's funny because the Hillary Banks character is amazing to me.
We're going to get to her because I've got some notes here that talk about Karen Parsons, and I'm going to read you her IMDb biography, which I'm pretty sure was written by her mom.
My sweet child of mine.
You're not far off. But after they pitched the show, brought on Andy Borowitz and Susan Stevenson, 10 weeks later, the show went into production. And they were able to hire Will Smith as the lead of the show. Willard Smith was actually born in West Philadelphia, son of Carolyn and Willard Smith Sr.
I'm sorry, just two seconds. You said Willard, right?
Yes. His actual name is Willard.
Do you know his middle name so we can fully go just 100% embarrassed?
I'm pretty sure that he has the same name as his father, which is Carroll. So, because his father is Willard Carroll Smith Sr., so he's probably Willard Carroll Smith Jr.
We'll have to find that out on a later date.
Exactly.
That's why they always called him Will.
In the show, he's actually William Smith.
Yeah. And they had to make him a little cooler than Willard. Exactly. Just a little bit.
I was somewhat ruined by this show to a degree because growing up where I grew up, I thought Will Smith was the coolest thing. And he was incredibly charming. Yeah. But the one thing that always threw me was that he had incredibly geeky moments.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest was when he danced. And me, not knowing what was actually happening in the world, I thought that's what good dancing was.
You fell for it.
I completely fell for it. And because of, I busted out some of those moves. Like, if you watch, you'll see he's got this one move that he likes to do, which is, I call it the side running man.
Yeah.
Where it's basically, you just kind of do kick your foot out at a 45-degree angle. It's like the better version of Elaine's little kicks from Seinfeld.
It's the body jerk.
Exactly.
Is what I call it.
So, and I thought that's how you danced, but that was not the case, and that's where I was misled by Willard.
See, that's why they said Will. Willard is the deceiver.
Exactly. So at that point, he was primarily an MC, and he was one half of the duo DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, with his childhood friend Jeffrey DJ Jazzy Jeff Towns as the turntablist and producer, and Ready Rock C, a.k.a. Clarence Holmes, as the human beatbox. And they were known for humorous, radio-friendly rap songs, most notably Parents Just Don't Understand and Summertime. The trio would actually win the first Rap Grammy Award in 1988. However, Smith was still very young at this point, and he wasn't paying his taxes. So in 1988 and 1989, when he didn't pay anything, the IRS assessed that he owed $2.8 million, and they pretty much garnished all of his wages and possessions until he was willing to pay. So part of the reason he agreed to do the show in the first place was because he needed to make some money really quickly, and this was a pretty reasonable way to do it.
Wow. So is it safe to say Will Smith was an earlier Chris Brown, just behind the scenes?
You know what? I feel like we can't actually say that because Will Smith, in many ways, is still America's sweetheart.
He is.
And he doesn't hit people. And actually, he got flack from other rappers, most notably Eminem, because when he won his MTV Video Music Award, he got up and he said, I don't have to cuss in any of my rap songs, and I'm really proud of that. And then, of course, in The Real Slim Shady, he was thrown shade for that.
Of course. Well, that's what he does. But Will Smith is the consummate good guy.
Exactly.
He might have just been very, very bad with money at that time.
Well, and in fairness, he was in his early 20s. If I had had that amount of money at the time, I would probably have a similar reaction. I mean, note Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
He's made some really stupid choices because he just got into his early 20s, and he has a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
And when you have that much money, that's what I call cocaine money.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah, it's like when you can afford that much cocaine and then afford to bail yourself out and just get a really good lawyer, you're in a really rough position. So
these are millionaire problems.
Yeah, these are first world problems.
Yeah.
So he signed on to the show, and actually for the first several years, the IRS garnished 70% of his paycheck. But he continued on, he persevered on, and after a couple of years, he was able to get himself out of debt.
Yeah. I mean, but imagine that being your job. Like, hey, you have to pay us back, but this is what you have to do. Like, I have to do this?
You know this because we've both worked on sitcoms before in various capacities.
Oh, yeah.
Sitcoms are the closest thing that an actor can have to a regular 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You show up on Monday, you do a table read, you rehearse on Tuesday, block on Wednesday, and you shoot the thing on Thursday, and then you go home.
Yeah.
Then you make $500,000 an episode.
And they're taking 70% of
yes.
that. That I can't afford to lose that much money.
Of course
It's not enough.
No.
Not to make TV shows. No. But that's just me. Maybe I'm not a Will Smith character.
Not yet, at least. We'll talk when we get there. I mean, we've got 148 episodes to go through, so let's see what happens once we get to that point.
All right. Let's get past the 1 yard line.
Of course. So the format of the show was that Will left West Philadelphia to move in with his aunt and uncle in Bel Air. Now, his uncle was played by James Avery. James Avery went into the U.S. Navy after he graduated high school, and he actually served in Vietnam from 1968 to 1969, after which he moved to San Diego and began writing TV scripts and poetry for PBS. He would later win an Emmy Award for production during his tenure there, and he got a scholarship to UCSD and got a Bachelor of Arts in Drama and Literature. Before doing the show, he was mostly a popular voiceover actor. Most famously, he was the voice of Shredder for 7 years on the cartoon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yeah. And everybody loved that. And you can't front. Everybody thought the Shredder voice was cool.
Absolutely.
You might have not liked Shredder because he wasn't a Ninja Turtle, but you liked the voice. And I think that's the craziest thing. It's like, oh, yeah, you did that. Yes. I was Shredder.
I feel like there's him and there's Keith David as the best voices in cartoon work.
Yeah.
Keith David, for those who know, he was the voice of Goliath on Gargoyles, and he has just that wonderful deep baritone. If you haven't seen him, go on YouTube and listen just to his voice. It will put you to sleep in a way that Morgan Freeman can't.
I think in a way that you wouldn't want Morgan Freeman to put you to sleep.
That's very true. Vivian Banks, his wife, was played by Janet Hubert. Now, she had grown up in Illinois and actually had a dance scholarship to Juilliard in New York City, where she studied under some of the best teachers, including Alvin Ailey and David Howard. She made her Broadway debut in the show The First and would dance in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Dancin', and was a member of the original Broadway cast of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats, portraying Betty Buckley's understudy for the role of Grisabella. She, by all accounts, ended up being a whole heap of crazy behind the scenes.
There's always one.
There has to be.
There's always one.
And the point I'm trying to make is that I feel like Janet Hubert was a special level of crazy, because it's like you said, I don't feel like when you're in a sitcom world, there's really anything too hard about the job. Like, you may not like the person that you're working with, but as far as jobs go, it's better if you do. But if you don't, there are ways to work around it. So if it's going to get to a point where someone says, I don't want to work with you anymore, I think that's an extra level. She did something that we're not ultimately ever going to know about, because the cast has kind of been mum on specifically what she did. Yeah.
And I mean, I think acting would be a perfect world to get that out of, because that's the sneakiest way to say what you really feel. Like, oh, okay.
Well, as you know, and I've said this in the past, most people don't realize it, but those who are drawn to a career in acting are normally very level-headed, easy to work with people who have no ego whatsoever. So to hear this is very surprising. And in case you can't tell, that was sarcasm.
Well, we just try and keep it together just a little bit. Just until they yell cut.
Just until they yell cut. I love it. So moving on, to play Will Smith's cousin, Alfonso Ribeiro was brought on to play Carlton Banks. He had also been in New York for quite some time. He grew up in the Riverdale section of the Bronx, and his parents immigrated from Trinidad and Tobago. Alfonso Ribeiro began his career at the age of 8 and first gained recognition in 1983, where he played a leading role in the Broadway musical The Tap Dance Kid, which earned him a nomination for an Outer Critics Circle Award. He also danced with Michael Jackson in a Pepsi commercial in 1984, the same year that he was cast as Rick Schroder's best friend on the TV series Silver Spoons. Now, mind you, I've only seen a few episodes of Silver Spoons, but that was a very different Alfonso Ribeiro.
Yeah, that's a completely different Alfonso Ribeiro. They did a complete transformation for that character.
He, in many ways in that show, was the answer to what Will Smith was to his Carlton. He was the more urban, the slightly more bad boy to Rick Schroder's all-American square. Exactly.
Yeah, and then he got out-cooled by Will Smith.
Which, to be fair, isn't that difficult.
Yeah. It's like the kid who made the shot once and thinks he's the best basketball player until the star walks in the gym.
But more than that, I mean, one of the things, going back and rewatching some of these episodes, one of the reoccurring themes is that I don't know that this show should have worked, and the reason that it did was because Will Smith is just an incredibly charming individual.
Yeah.
And there are times where I haven't seen the scripts, but I'm sure that the writers just said, Will does something charming here.
Or he just went off the script and just said, are you going to cut it out?
This was such a low-rated show that in the third and fourth season, they had written the finales to be a series finale, just in case the show didn't get picked up again. So at the end of the fourth season, he was back in Philadelphia. And to begin the fifth season, the way they bring him back to Los Angeles was literally they just had a guy from NBC show him his contract and said, you are on a show called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, not The Fresh Prince of Philadelphia. They throw him in the back of a van. The executive says, yo, home to Bel-Air, and then they never talk about it again.
Yeah, well, that's a certain way to put you in your place.
Exactly.
Look, we're trying to give you millions. Can we do that? Okay, we're just going to throw you in the truck, and we're going to give you millions.
Speaking of someone who did not make millions, Alfonso Ribeiro actually also had a music career similar to that of Will Smith, where he released in 1986 a rap record called Time Bomb. And I highly recommend you go on YouTube and listen to this. This is the bastard child of Axel F. from Beverly Hills Cop and just the entire soundtrack of Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
When you put it like that, it just sounds so amazing that you have to buy it on iTunes.
Listen to it on YouTube first. Just get that experience, because There are certain things that aren't worth $1, and that very well could be one of them.
It could be, but just for the sake of novelty, you might want to help him out on his album sales.
Oh, he's doing fine. He's sold a reality TV show that he's the executive producer of. Like, he's going and he's doing stream home makeovers now.
Okay, so I think he's given up on his rap career. I was just trying to keep another rapper alive.
I think we've got plenty of them right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how cool would it be to have Alfonso Ribeiro on the same station as all these other rappers?
Not as cool as having him being on the same station while doing the Carlton. Like, just feeling him
all
rap.
All things in perspective, people. All things in perspective. Let the creativity flow.
So to play Carlton's older sister, Hillary, Karen Parsons was cast. Now, here's where I want to read how her IMDb begins. Karen Parsons grew up the only child in historic Hollywood, California. At an early age, Parsons was an aspiring dancer whose only words were, quote, keep trying. Nonetheless, Karen had torn out a knee ligament from which she'd retired from dancing at an early preteen age. Then, at 13, Parsons got inspired by the craft of acting when seeing her schoolmates perform in George Bernard Shaw's Mrs. Warren's Profession. And we're going to stop there because that's about all I can handle at the moment. But she had a few small credits before The Fresh Prince, and this was really her breakout role. Mm-hmm. She was quite perfect in the role, and that's really all there is to say about it. Yeah. She just played that bratty older sister who had that sense of ambiance that you come with living in Beverly Hills, and based on this biography,
she had a free acting coach. She had a city's worth of acting coaches right there.
That is the definition of typecasting.
She didn't even. I don't think she even went to hire an acting coach. I just think she went to her friend's house and just said, "Hey, what do you do? What's your life like?" Okay.
And that's exactly how the character ended up working.
Yeah.
Moving on. Is there anything else to say about her?
I mean, no. She is Hillary Banks.
Okay. So, Ashley Banks, the youngest sister, was played by Tatiana M. Ali, who would later just become Tatiana Ali. Tatiana began singing at the age of 4 and began performing at the age of 6, beginning her career on Sesame Street. She would go to perform in many Broadway productions, including the Broadway show Fences with James Earl Jones and later Billy D. Williams. When she was 7, she appeared on Star Search and won twice. At age 8, she played Eddie Murphy's little sister in the opening sketch to his comedy show Raw during the flashback and sang Why Do Fools Fall in Love? And then at age 11, she moved from New York to Los Angeles and was very quickly cast on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, what's interesting about Ashley, and one of the things that you and I had spoken about setting up this podcast, was that eventually there's going to be a Hillary versus Ashley debate.
Of course, as there should be.
When the show first begins, there isn't that same debate going on. Hillary is very clearly the alpha in this situation as the older sister, and is the one who has less of a character change than Tatiana did.
Yeah, because I think at the beginning of the show, like even from the setup, as soon as Will got there, her whole life just changed. She was like, there's a whole nother reality.
We'll actually get to that very quickly. Will actually sells Ashley's violin and buys her a set of drums.
Yeah. In
a very early episode. Something that's very important about this show is that these first couple episodes are very, very odd.
Yeah.
And that's the case with most sitcoms because you're kind of just throwing spaghetti up against the wall and seeing what sticks because you don't know what the dynamic of the family is yet, and you don't know what works and what doesn't. You haven't really necessarily figured out how to write for these particular actors.
Yeah.
So that's when you get weird stuff like Will just traded in Ashley's violin for some drums and gets into all kinds of wacky trouble.
Well, that's what you have. That's what happens when you get the writers of Family Ties involved. Like they're not quite ready for all the Will ad libs yet.
But at the same time, like that didn't necessarily change as time went on. Also, one of the most notable writers from the show is Genji Cohen, who created Orange is the New Black.
Yeah. Talented writer.
Exactly. So, but again, there was a lot of Caucasian in that writer's room.
pretty sure Dave Chappelle would not be happy about that.
Probably not. Playing the butler of the family, Joseph Marcel played Jeffrey, whose full name was Jeffrey Barbara Butler. Marcel was actually born in St. Lucia and moved to the United Kingdom when he was 9 years old. In college, he studied theater and science, then took courses in speech and dance at the University of Sheffield, Yorkshire, where he became a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company. Before doing the show, his biggest television appearance was in the original series Doctor Who in the episode Remembrance of the Daleks.
That sounds like something that he would be in.
Exactly. He has done quite a few Shakespeare roles, including Othello, which is a huge role for any African American male actor.
Oh yeah, and I mean he has the chops to carry it. So I think
he has that voice.
I think it's more so the presence. When you just take a look at Jeffrey, it's like Jeffrey looks like he should be a millionaire in some part of the world. He should look like he should be a millionaire.
And truth be told, and I think he's recognized this, wherever his character is from originally, if he had taken all the money he made with the Banks family and just took it back to his home country, he would just be able to retire.
He'd be king.
He would just live easy.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we'll find out later why he left his hometown, because there's a whole episode devoted to that.
Yes. They tie everything together.
And that's when the show really had its stride in place, because they knew just how far they could push a storyline. Because in the beginning, everything was just crazy, but in time, they realized, okay, here's where the line is, and we can walk right up to it, and we can do some weird stuff, but we can't, do all kinds of weird stuff.
It's still 90s TV.
Exactly.
It still had its limits.
And it kind of got past the point where it would have the wacky thing that Will does every week. Because after a while, that doesn't work. Because you recognize, okay, this is what Will is. Yeah. And if the character doesn't evolve, then you get frustrated about it really quickly.
Of course. And I think that's where you got the best characters out of. Like, that's where you got all of the one-liners, like the Hillary asking Uncle Phil for money, or Carlton just breaking down in some form or fashion.
Speaking of best characters, to Art Imitating Life, DJ Jazzy Jeff, Jeffrey A. Towns, was brought on as a character in the show named Jazz. Mm-hmm. His presence was never really explained. All we knew was that he was Will's best friend, and that he had a huge crush on Hillary.
Yeah.
Now, he had one of the more notable gags of the show, because Uncle Phil was never happy with the idea of him being in the house, Uncle Phil being James Avery's character. So they would physically eject him from the house.
Which made for the best soundbite ever in the history of the world.
Now, I have to check. We need to see if we can play that soundbite. And if we can, we'll insert it right here. Ah! And if not, you just heard a bunch of silence. But it's just a great moment in television history. Just the scream that he makes. It's visceral.
It's very real. It sounds like something that would really come out of you when you're being thrown out of a house.
And one thing that you see about that particular scene, obviously because of television, they're not going to physically throw him out of the house every single
time. Really? I thought that was a stunt.
Nope. They only shot it once, which meant that every time he got thrown out of the house, the wardrobe department had to make sure he was wearing the same shirt that he was wearing in that scene, which is why you see so often that he's wearing the same clothing. Now, they actually did film the throw twice, because in one episode in the later seasons, there was an altercation between Jazz and Uncle Phil, where Jazz was standing in the backyard, and he says, I got you now. I'm already outside the house. What are you going to do? So Uncle Phil picks him up and throws him in the house.
And it's for moments like that we watch TV.
Exactly. You can, in many ways, see evolution of that archetype of leading man that Will Smith created and the people that he surrounded, going all the way to what we have now in television, which is a big boost, the anti-hero.
Yeah.
Like, as amazing as this sounds, I don't think there's that big of a stretch between Will Smith and Don Draper.
Oh, no.
you could probably take Mad Men, add a laugh track to it, speed it up a little bit. Yeah. You'd have a pretty funny comedy out of it.
I mean, it's all in what you're watching, you know, because we could see the same thing, and I could think it's the funniest thing in the world, and somebody could just be crying right next to me.
Although the one thing I think we can agree on, once we will eventually meet Will's father, everybody's heart gets broken in that episode.
Yeah, that was a sad moment just in life. You know, I think everybody walked around for like 3 days after that.
And Will Smith actually calls that his crying episode.
Yeah, that was the first time anybody saw the Will Smith cry, and it evolved all the way up into 7 pounds.
All the way up into 7 pounds, and then got dropped immediately when he did After Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Will Smith cry is a one-of-a-kind thing. Will Smith is the only one who can do that cry. I think he actually, you know, he has the one thing that a lot of actors have. They have that thing that they do that nobody can do. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, nobody else can do it but him.
And he, again, comes back with that charm that no other actor really matches.
Yeah.
Though, because this show would actually spawn several attempts to make copies of it. Because before this, now anytime that you have a rapper, it's just sort of assumed that eventually he's going to end up acting in something.
Yeah.
That was not the case when Will Smith was first cast. Nobody was casting actors from the rap community. All of them are considered... I mean, the fact that we have Ice-T as an actor now, more people know him as a cop from Law & Order SVU than they do as a musician.
And it's funny because, you know, he's the gangster turned cop. Mm-hmm. He still gets shows. That's
exactly.
The thing. People say, how do you turn... He does it every season. He just renews his contract. That's pretty much how you do it.
Yeah. You just take that paycheck because you should.
Yeah, because you can't be a gangster forever.
No, but in the comedy world, after the show premiered in 1990, in 1993, Fox premiered Living Single, which starred Dana Owens, a.k.a. Queen Latifah, which lasted from 1993 to 1998. LL Cool J in 1995 also starred in a Quincy Jones sitcom.
Yeah, he did.
Called In the House, where he played a former athlete turned eventually physical therapist.
Named Marion.
It ran on NBC for one season before the newly launched United Paramount Network, aka UPN, picked it up after NBC canceled it. And the show also featured Alfonso Ribeiro in the later seasons.
Yeah. I mean, but that, you know, they were definitely trying to capture that essence, so you can't really have it without having him on there.
I guess, but if you're trying to have the essence, do you really want to bring in the same actor? Because I feel like when you're trying to create a world and you're trying to create a thing that you know isn't as good as the actual thing that you're trying to recreate, bringing in something from that world just kind of reminds everyone, hey, you know what? This thing we're making, we want you to think it's really good, and we're dangling this carrot, but we're really just reminding you that the thing we're making isn't as good as the thing we wanted to basically remake.
Maybe they were going for good by association. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't.
Which I feel like we didn't actually get that from LL Cool J until he moved on to host Lip Sync Battle on Spike.
But LL, he's had a very interesting career. He's one of the very few people who can recreate himself in any way possible, except for a reoccurring rapper right now. You know, I think he's full on family and hosting right now.
And he's never going to have a rap career again. I mean, I feel like the rap industry has changed too much from where it was. Because what he did, while it was revolutionary at the time, people have taken that and remixed it and built on it. Like, if you had a rap battle between LL Cool J and Kendrick Lamar is going to take it.
Well, I don't even think that would be a battle. I think that would just be LL Cool J complimenting Kendrick, and Kendrick letting him know, thank you, father figure. I think that's really what would happen.
Realistically, you're right. It would be the LL Cool J show featuring special guest Kendrick Lamar, in which Kendrick Lamar would really be the main draw, and LL Cool J would just sort of clap and laugh at all of his jokes.
Yeah, he'd be the bumper music, if you will. But, you can't completely discredit LL, because, when he did come out with Rock the Bells and all that. It was good, and he made the first hip hop love song, so you can't really hate on the man. I Need Love is still a classic at every prom night.
That is true, and getting jiggy with it is not.
There are some things that make you successful that just might not be the best decision, but you go with it anyways and see how it happens.
Well, getting jiggy with it, and mind you, this took place right after the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air went off the air.
Yeah.
That was an incredible phenomenon. It was mind-boggling, how many people you would have just doing that dance that you would bring to it. It just spanned the gamut of everyone, because that music video was everywhere.
It was just so cheery and shiny and plasticky. It really was. The jacket was... just the amount of travel that he did. Now,
mind you, for those who have not seen this video, go on YouTube and watch it.
It's a very interesting video. It's completely Will Smith, but that's how you have to look at it, because it's so energetic.
Because it's like at one point he's in this shiny blue blazer doing this iconic dance that goes with it, and then later on he's in an Egyptian sarcophagus with people dancing, wearing traditional pharaoh robes. It's just it's everywhere, and it doesn't make sense. But somehow, again, going back to this Will Smith charm that made the entire show work, he makes this video work.
Yeah.
And you would see this later in his film work with such classics as Wild Wild West.
Yeah. Wild Wild West was one of the good ones.
Even though he fought a giant spider.
I think Will Smith is good at this. You watch movies that are good for the time, but years later you go back and you can laugh at it. Like,
it was just, that was such an odd pairing altogether. Because, you can understand how when you cast someone like James Avery, who has that presence, and you put him with Will Smith, who's meant to be below him and ultimately subordinate to him, you can see how that dynamic works.
Yeah.
But then you have Will Smith next to Kevin Kline. Now, these are two completely different actors. Like, Kevin Kline, I will listen to that man read just about anything, be it Shakespeare or the phone book. And then you have Will Smith, who has an incredible charm, but he doesn't seem like he reads the script. Like, he epitomizes, I don't read the script reads me.
It's like I said earlier. It's like, I'm not going to go by the script. You going to cut it out? Was it funny?
And that's most of the show right there.
Yeah.
And that brings us into the first episode. That is the primer. That sets the groundwork for everything that we want to do in this podcast.
And that's pretty much, that's how we want everything to be.
Yeah. You've got this cast, and now that we know who they are, we're going to see how they come together in this next episode, where we talk about the first episode. That's going to be the setup. Every episode covers one episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We're going to start with episode 1 next week. We're going to go all the way to episode 148.
And you're going to enjoy the ride, because you enjoyed it the first time, and you'll enjoy it the second time around.
We hope. I mean, we don't claim to know you. Obviously, you know us at this point. But
this is very true. That was just a very bold statement, and, I'm just saying that you'll like it because I'm hoping and praying that you'll like it, because you'll like it, right?
And we want you to like it in as many ways as possible. So if you're listening to us on iTunes, please go in, rate us 5 stars, leave a nice comment. We can go in and we can read some of your nice comments. We'll read them here on the air. Also, make sure to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter at SoFreshSoPrince. We're on Instagram at SoFreshSoPrince. We're also on Tumblr, SoFreshSoPrince.tumblr.com. That's where we store all of our Fresh Prince GIFs, or GIFs, depending on how you decide that you want to pronounce it.
I'm going to say they're going to be GIFs because of all the laughs that they're going to get out of them.
Okay. Well, we'll be putting up Fresh Prince of Bel-Air GIFs to talk about every individual episode, because we can get away with that.
Yes, we can.
We may be on Facebook at some point, and if we do, we'll make sure to let you know in the next episode. But, right now Facebook doesn't like us very much.
Maybe we'll make friends with Facebook a little later. But, right now we're not trying to salvage that relationship. We're trying to reach out to you,
Exactly. So make sure to tweet us, hit us up on Instagram, like us, favorite us, say nice things about us, tell your friends, give us accolades, and just remember, we're here for the Fresh Prince.
Yes, that's pretty much why we're here. You know, I still have an Eagles jersey because of it, and many
multicolored shirts, and I'm pretty sure you do too. So, don't be afraid to own up to those things. Look, matter of fact, even on the Instagram, take some pictures of some of the paraphernalia that you have, because I know you have it.
You've got the hat. We've got a picture up of you in the hat.
Yes, I have the hat. Don't leave me all by myself, because I know you have some too. That's how I know you're gonna love it. That's why these are gifts. We're giving you a chance to relive your 90s days.
And oh, will they ever.
Yes, they will. In all ages, all sizes, and all technicolors.
It's actually, it is very amazing, though, because not only does it hold up, but in many ways it is a relic of the time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Ashley in her crop shirts, Will in his oversized sweatshirts and Jinko jeans.
Jinko, yeah. Well, we won't fault him for Jinko, but, we'll take everything else. We definitely will take everything else. And, it's funny because fashion always does have a way of resurging itself. So, it's like we never left.
There's always a blurred.
Yeah, it's always a blurred line. Sorry about that one there. I heard it after I said it, but it's okay. We're just going to act like we never heard it.
And maybe we'll cut it, maybe we'll leave it in. So any parting words you want to share with us, Lorenzo, about the show?
I just want to say that I'm amazed that, if you really look at it, it's like the first reality TV show, if you think about it, because
it has a family dynamic that is not quite working, but does work in a weird way. But really, it's just fun, I think people have forgotten how to just have pure fun and just laugh. And, sometimes you need to laugh at your family. And if you can't laugh at your family, laugh at the family on screen, because they're exactly like your family. Minus the Bel Air, minus the Millions, minus the... Okay, so they're nothing like your family, but there's something like the family that you want.
If you had Urkel approach you about losing your virginity, please tweet us that at SoFreshSoPrince, because that's on the show.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing it. It's for moments like that.
Yes. Exactly. Like I said, it's nothing like your family, but it's what you want your family to be like.
Exactly. So live in that nostalgia and join us week after week.
After week.
As we talk So Fresh, So Prince.
Of course. So Fresh, So Prince. Enjoy each and every episode and rewatch the episodes with us. Maybe we forgot something. Maybe we didn't see
the lampshade in the back or the random dog. Maybe you saw something that we didn't see.
And that's what we can do. If we will admit our faults.
Yes, we will.
If you see something, if we forget something, if there's something that happens in the episode and we missed it, if there's a trivia bit, if there's something in the background, if all of a sudden Bo Jackson was doing a dance somewhere over Will's shoulder and we didn't see it, tell us and we will admit our errors and omissions and give you credit.
Of course, and then you can throw us out the house like Jazz. We'll give you that. We'll let you be Uncle Phil for like 2 seconds, only 2 seconds.
For Uncle Phil of the Week.
I love it. And we'll send you a little Uncle Phil statue of paper. It'll be a paper statue. You'll just fold it up and it'll be paper.
I think we'll tweet it to them and they can print it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I mean. We don't pay for shipping or handling. We're just going to send you... Maybe I didn't explain it right. See, this is why Andrew is here, matter of fact, we'll put it up on your Instagram. How about that? We'll have the Uncle Phil Award on your Instagram. You will get the Uncle Phil Award on your Instagram. I like it.
I like it too.
All right.
And so it is done.
It is set in Play-Doh.
In Play-Doh. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful day. Tell your friends to listen.
Goodbye, people. We love you.
So Fresh, So Prince is a Bitten from the Apple production, produced by Andrew Apple and Lorenzo Gordon. Music by Griffey Majors.